Right, let's get some analysis to these developments as well as possible outcomes of the NEC meeting. And we're joined now by Sysman Motloung. Good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on. Let's start immediately out of this crumbling multi-party charter for South Africa. You have an ActionSA that clearly has lost trust in the Democratic Alliance, and so they're pulling out of the multi-party charter at a national level. Yet, they feel still comfortable to stay with them in some kind of coalition in the city of Tshwane. From my point of view, I listen to that and I say, you know, these marriages have got very little to do with principles and values, but more to do with what the party gets out of it.
Yeah, I think that is correct. What you see, one could read it as that Moon Pact agreement having dissolved and become irrelevant after the electoral outcome, when all the parties realize that they do not have that expected majority. It becomes a bit useless to remain there. And secondly, one could also look at it maybe saying ActionSA does make sense. They had a pre-election agreement. This raises a question of how significant are pre-election agreements, notwithstanding the outcome. These were based on a particular principle, and one of them, ActionSA argues, was a principle of not working with the ANC. Now, when you see some coalition partners using expediency, and I think here they're insinuating the likes of IFP, DA now negotiating with the ANC for a new form of government. They say you are betraying the very same principles. We were to say we are true to those principles, we remain out of power, we remain the opposition, and not work. The principle was not to work with the ANC. Now you renege on that principle as coalition partners. Therefore, we will not work with you. And they would want to argue that leave Ekurhuleni aside, that was a local government matter. The coalition agreement was for a national election. And because this election did not materialize, we are going to dissolve this. We are going to also hold our members accountable for not keeping up with the promises. Now limit it to national issues and don't take it to local affairs.
Yeah. How does that work when these arrangements that they're being made now at a national level could possibly extend to province, possibly extend even to local government? I mean, are they not at risk of being left out completely with a DA that is now clearly prepared to have talks and conversations with the ANC?
Yes, that question is, are they left out? Yes, because at this moment, suppose DA, IFP have successful negotiations with the DA, with the ANC, then these two political parties will be in government and ActionSA will be outside. They are left behind. And then the other question, yes, we could also say it cannot be just plain like that to say an agreement was for national issues only, because even in the process of negotiating coalition agreements at a national level, there could be aspects of bargaining where a political party would say, I will give you my percentage at a national government, I will take minor positions or no position at all. You have to forgo certain positions at a particular metropolitan. It depends what is valuable. So there will be trading in that manner. In that regard, the ActionSA will be outside and not benefiting at all. But I suspect, I don't think, because ActionSA is not supporting DA and IFP in this regard, it would happen that locally they also become enemies. They will still collaborate. It's just a political position. Here we could put it as a political position now that ActionSA is taking.
NEC meeting currently going on. We're about to go in there, it seems, and get that address from President Cyril Ramaphosa. But there's been a lot of push, a lot of pressure, Sysman, from Black Business Council, Black Business Forum, from alliance partners, from other members of the African National Congress. In fact, we saw some even protesting outside the very same meeting that is taking place there for the ANC to merge with parties on the left. Do you think the ANC takes those overtures seriously?
Yeah, I think the ANC should take them seriously. It is very important in this deliberative democracy to listen to various perspectives. It is the NC's tradition itself to hear the opposing voice. The culture of NC is basically that contestation, or what they call a festival of ideas. So they will take it seriously to understand the implication of an alternative decision if they were to make opposite to what these other interest groups are preferring. And at the same time, these alternative voices should not deter the ANC from making a decision that they feel is informed and is in the good interest of the country, even the good interest of presenting the party in the public through a different lens and a different understanding. Other than that, it is mainly to critique these arguments where the Black Business Forum is mainly trying to say to the ANC, remain with these far left ideas of the economic formation of social reform versus what is supposed to be a new right wing faction of the Democratic Alliance. But when you look closely to the policies of the NC and EFF, you realize, and NC and DA, you realize that there is not so much a big difference there. The ANC is more of a centrist, moderate political party in its economic policies. They do have a stronger inclination on social security, but they prefer an open economy, a competitive market. This is something the Democratic Alliance also prefers. While on the left, there might be, far left, there might even be more propensity to argue for a more state intervention and more communist or socialist leaning policies. That is something that your Democratic Alliance do not prefer. This is why the Democratic Alliance was first out of the blocks. Before everyone started to really imagine what could be possible, the DA was already out there framing an ANC, EFF, MK, I think IFP or was it PA alliance as something that will be dismal to the markets. This way, it is how Democratic Alliance tried already to overtake everyone and already inform the mindset that whenever these negotiations begin, there's already this kind of an agenda on the table.
So there is also the internal consideration that some of the, if you say, predetermined discussions that are happening outside with analysts, but others believing are happening in the ANC as well, that whatever direction that this coalition is going to take is also going to speak to a change in leadership within the ANC. So those who are saying there is a Fikile Mbalula, Cyril Ramaphosa faction that wants to merge with the DA. There is a Gwede Mantashe and a deputy president faction that says, no, let's go with EFF and MK. Is that going to be a deciding factor of a change in leadership within the organization?
Yeah, we could think that this kind of negotiations or discussions are a precursor to the ANC's conference, maybe, when there had to be a deliberation on who should lead the ANC going forward. Should President Cyril Ramaphosa return or Mr. Mashatile take over? And I think mistakes that those are in leadership would make now could set a platform for the opposing views and even factions to start putting an agenda to say the particular leader, say Mr. Ramaphosa, if you were to be stubborn if majority are advising him, don't go with the DA, and he continues that way. The question is to what extent will the others will be aggrieved to a point of mobilizing to oust him and replace him with a particular leader who will return the ANC to a particular policy position. But that policy position could even be called a return to the Zuma era radical economic transformation, because we don't hear much of that rhetoric of radical economic transformation, but it is implied in this aspect of remain far left for what purpose, except of this element of an economic reform that is pro-poor, while the side of the DA is not so much pro-poor, it's market-oriented, is to benefit the market. So there is that tension between ideological purity or ideological loyalty to socialist reforms versus capitalist reforms of the market. That debate will remain, but to which extent this will be a rhetoric of the ANC conference going forward, I think one can say just a little bit. I don't think it's so much a big thing. Unless somebody say, no, this is the heart of the ANC. Actually, if we were to blunder here, we would have erased ourselves from the hearts of the people, because the ANC has failed to capture a majority vote. Were they not voted for because of certain policies? One can also point out there, for example, Mr. Mandacha is one of the people who was against a just energy transition. He was saying we have coal that we can use and we can generate energy from that. Why should we shut certain stations? And I think from the labor side, the workers are not happy with them losing jobs for the sake of promoting a Western sponsored policy of energy transition at the cost of employment, and then the same coal is being exported overseas. So those, I think, will remain big arguments in terms of economic policy and how to stimulate growth again. Because today the question remains that how do you create employment for the marginalized?
Is that left-leaning posture going to be pursued at all costs? In other words, at the cost of the ANC, for example, giving into demands that are being made by a 20% party or a 14% party that really seeks to get more than what actually it got as far as the votes are concerned, what others could say unreasonable conditions and demands?
I don't think NC would accede to, for example, likes of Democratic Alliance bulldozing certain policies. The NC would remain to say, were we to receive a majority of votes and without you, we have key policies that we wanted to implement. I think tension could be on BEE-related or policies. And because we understand the Democratic Alliance has been speaking more about merit and not so much about having to use policies that are to reform. And now I really forget the concept in terms of bringing in marginalized people into the economy. ANC has been talking about more inclusive economy. This is what Mr. Ramaphosa was also talking about. And then the DA is adamant on the policy of preference, of really merit preference. And I think there might be arguments, because even though you would stand on merit, we don't see so much of a private sector that is transformed. We don't see so much Black women in senior positions as much as is desired. We don't see even Black people in senior positions as desired. So I don't think this is something ANC will compromise on.
Sysman Motloung, let's leave it there for now, but stay close to your phone, because as soon as the president would have made those closing remarks, we're going to bring you back in, and I'm sure there'll be a clearer picture of what the NEC would have decided there. That's Sysman Motloung. He's going to stay very close, and we'll bring him back in for some more analysis.